New videos every day.
Hello, Joseph Strickland here. I'm an applied clinical nutritionist in Austin, Texas, and today I've been instructed to talk to you about blood sugar. Now, blood sugar, traditionally, if you look at it from a medical perspective, I'm going to be the first to say that I'm not a doctor, and so I don't use medical terminology. There's a certain word that gets used, which is called diabetes. And type 1 is a medical condition that basically occurs when the pancreas doesn't create insulin. Okay? The kind that I'm going to talk to you about, I'm not going to phrase it in the terminology of diabetes type 2 and all this sort of thing. But I'm going to talk to you more just about how that system gets set up. And there's a lot of videos on this particular site that you can look up, and there's been a ton of presenters that have talked about homeostasis. And essentially, just to give you a brief summary, if you want to learn more about homeostasis, you can, but the body tends to try to remain at certain levels. So if something gets too much, if you get too much of a certain thing, then your body tends to try to bring it back into balance. And one of those things is sugar. Your body uses glucose as a fuel. And when you're eating foods that turn into glucose very fast, sugar, for instance, turns into sugar into the body at 100. It's 100%. You eat it, and it can be directly used for energy. Something else that's near 100 on this list is wheat or flour-based products. Now, things that take longer to convert to glucose are lower on this list. And the list I'm talking about is referred to as the Glycemic Index. It's basically just a list of different things and how fast they turn into sugar in the body. Well, when we eat foods that are very high on this list, we can get too much at any one given time of sugar in the blood. And so what happens is the body, in order to bring it back to the normal level, creates insulin. Now, that works as a system very well. But the problem comes when we're eating, 64 ounces of soft drink. Back when we were out hunting and gathering food, you maybe could get a handful of berries at a given time, but you really couldn't get these massive amounts of sugar, and certainly not refined from sugar cane with none of the minerals and nothing else there but just pure white crystalline sugar. But the actual truth is, if sugar were discovered today, it's a white crystalline substance that's extracted from a plant. Well, what's cocaine? Same kind of deal. It alters our mood. It changes our emotional state. It is a drug. And there's a lady that's done a lot of research on this. Her name's Nancy Appleton. You can just Google Nancy Appleton. She writes a great book called Lick the Sugar Habit. And she actually has a list of questions to find out whether or not you're a sugar addict. And most likely, if you're living in America, you're a sugar addict. I've certainly fallen into that category in the past. And so essentially, you see, when people ingest the sugar at a large amount over what their body needs, the amount of insulin that the body has to produce is higher and higher and higher. And what actually happens hormonally is that the cell that actually takes the insulin in becomes resistant. It starts to say, okay, I've had too much of this effect. And so then you get what's called insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. So it really is a lack of ability for the body to digest carbohydrates at the level that it used to. It's just a system in the body that's been overworked. Imagine you're driving a car and you just hold the accelerator down all the way and redline it. What's going to happen? The engine's going to burn out. Same thing is true with our bodies. At a cellular level, the amount of insulin our body has to deal with just gets worn out. It gets just like an old tire. And so that leads us to either take drugs that force the cells to accept the insulin, that's glucophage or various things like that, or modify our diet so that we're not creating the havoc in our system. And that's really, as a nutritionist, what I do is I work to help people with their own blood sugar, get on a diet that doesn't, go to any extreme on that. Now, the other issue is this isn't just, or doesn't play into just insulin resistance. If you get too much of any hormone in the body, it'll become resistant to that particular hormone. So that's one of the reasons why when people use plastics, microwave with plastics, and we get all this environmental estrogen, you get all these weird problems with menopause and hormones being out of whack. And, so it's any wonder that in our modern society that anyone's normal, really. And that ties into several videos I've done on why you need to be health conscious. Because if you're not health conscious and you just kind of do what everybody else is doing, unfortunately our environment is set up so that we will be sick. You've probably heard the saying, your body heals itself. And that's true. But when I tell somebody that their body heals itself, they generally tell me, well, then why am I sick? Well, the reason for that is because there are certain things environmentally that actually stop our bodies from doing its job. If you're ingesting crack, you're not going to be very healthy. If you're overdosing on heroin, you're not going to be healthy. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things besides just drugs that we can overdose on. We can get too much mercury, either because we're dumping stuff in our oceans and it's in our fish and we get it that way, or we get too many, pardon me, American Dental Association, I know you disagree with me on this, but you can get too much mercury in your mouth, it can leak, and there's some dentists from Canada that are into the whole, extraction of mercury and all that, and I don't really want to debate that. But it is true that there are certain environmental factors that stop our bodies from being able to do its job. And really, as a nutritionist, that's what I work on, is working to figure out what it is specifically for you that you need to handle in your environment that'll allow your body to do its job. There's a lot of people out there right now that are explaining the various environmental things. And that's fine. They're legitimate. The problem is, if you try to do everything at once, it can be impossible. Try changing all your cookware. Try changing your diet at the same time while you're reducing your medications and you're drinking filtered water and all that. You can do all of these things and sure, they're great, but it's important to figure out what's the most important right now and what eventually is going to bridge that gap so you can be as healthy as you can be. But really, environmentally, it's important to be mindful of that, both from a sugar standpoint and from any hormonal situation. So thank you very much. If you enjoyed this information, then go to my website, nutritionaustin.com. I've got a lot of really good information on there. Also, rate this video, check out the different videos on this site, and until next time, have a good one.